program. It's my pleasure to introduce a special person on this occasion, a man with a lot of energy. We know Dr. Ram Prabhu. Our association with Dr. Ram Prabhu started some 4 or 5 years back. He's a member of our program assessment committee for our mechanical engineering department. And about Dr. Ram Prabhu, and his specialization include aerospace alloys and metal additive manufacturing, 3D printing, metal matrix composites, tribology, and process modeling optimization, including novel manufacturing process and material characterization techniques. And his contribution to the country is the materials and manufacturing process specialist in the aerospace materials components for the application of fighter aircrafts, aero engine, unmanned aerial vehicle, supersonic cruise missile, long-range subsonic cruise missile, beyond visual air-to-air missile, and anti-tank missile. He has obtained his PhD from IIT Madras, and he has got his master's degree from IISc Bangalore. He has received his BTech from IIT Trichy, and he has served Department of Engineering Design IIT Madras as research for the period January 2011 to May 2014, and he is serving as scientist and deputy director at DRDO from June 2009 to till date. He has served in Smart Analyst Private Limited Gurugram as a research analyst. He is recipient of prestigious Young Alumni Achiever Award. He is a recipient of prestigious Institution of Engineers Young Engineer Award and Gold Medal and Commendation Certificate at the National Science Day from Chairman DRDO. He is a recipient of prestigious Technology Group Award 2018 DRDO Bangalore. He's got the certificate award for Best Student Project of 2008 by Institute for Explorer and Advances in Engineering. He has received citation of Best Oral Award for his paper presentation at NIT Trichy. He is a recipient of prestigious Bharat Gaurav Award in 2016 from New Delhi, and he's got the certificate of Outstanding Reviewer from Elsevier. His biography was honored in 2000 Outstanding Intelligence of the 21st Century, published by Cambridge, England. His biography was honored in the Marquis Who's and What in the World, published by Marquis in 2017, and he has published more than 100 papers in various international journals, reputed SCA journals. He is also serving as a reviewer for many international journals. He is also serving as editor for journals, and he has published a lot of book chapters and books, and he has reviewed manuscript for Tribology International Elsevier and a lot of many journals. And currently he is guiding 7 PhD scholars. So though he is working in DRDO, he is spending a lot of time spending his time with research scholars, and he's also completed guiding 3 EPTech scholars. He's the Board of Studies members in our college, MS Ramaya Institute of Technology, Bangalore, Russell University, KSR Institute of Technology, and Banariam Institute of Technology, and he has reviewed many doctoral theses. So with these few words, I welcome a man who is rightly suited for our ASC short-term program, Dr. Ram Prabhu. Now the floor is open to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I thank the Kamaraj College of Engineering for the warm invitation and being part of your program. And I extend my thanks to head of the department and Mr. Palnivel and Mr. Saktivel and Mr. Prithvi. All of them are reason for me being there in your STTP program. And it has been about 3 to 4 years I'm in touch with Kamaraj College of Engineering. It is really, whenever I go there, I get a very warm reception there. And the warmth I feel from Kamaraj College of Engineering is really commendable. I thank for that. Without wasting much time, I'll be presenting my research work on effect of build direction on the tensile properties of aluminum 10SiMg alloy. Hope you are able to see my slides and my voice are loud and clear. Could you please acknowledge?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Sir,
sir.
everything's correct. Okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe the first off, I'll be taking you the journey on how to conduct the research and what the research what we conducted. I'll give you some idea on that. Maybe about for 45 minutes to 1 hour. Then after I mean 10:30, like no half an hour break. Then 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock we'll have very important session wherein I'm going to give you idea to all the researchers who are doing currently research or who are going to start the research or who are just completed research, wanted to start up their postdoctoral research or the postdoctoral research project proposal related. Okay, so for them it will be really useful. So I have gathered the ideas. What are the project ideas available in metal additive manufacturing? So we'll be talking from 11 to 12 about that. So first we'll talk about research, like the research what we conducted on that. So this research is very simple. Like what we did in this work is we have fabricated the tensile coupons, okay, in a different build orientation, build directions. Like samples are oriented at 0 degree, 45 degree, 90 degree. Okay, so 0 degree is nothing but the horizontal plane, and 45 degree is the inclined plane, and 90 degree is the vertical plane. So samples were on the parallel to the horizontal direction and perpendicular to the horizontal direction and inclined to 45 degree to the horizontal directions were built, and we tried to understand how the property variation with respect to the directions, especially the tensile properties. Okay, the method what we have used to fabricate the samples was laser powder bed fusion. It is one of the commercially successful metal additive manufacturing process, and this machine is supplied by EVOS. It's a EVOS 400 watts machine. Okay, and the process parameter we have finalized based on the input or the process sheet given by the EVOS company, and these are the very important process parameter which we should know before printing any component. That is laser power, scanning speed, the platform temperature, build platform temperature, the substrate on which you build the samples are called the build platform. The reason why you have to keep either at room temperature or higher temperature, it is to minimize the thermal gradient in your build, so that residual stress you can minimize it. And inert gas atmosphere is very important. Otherwise, your metal will oxidize and there will be a lot of defects and oxidation problems. And layer thickness 30 micron meter. Okay, so layer thickness, it should not be too thin or too thick. If it is too thick, laser will not penetrate and there will be unfused regions. Okay, if it is too thin, there is a chance for the evaporation because too much amount of energy is focused on too less thick regions. Okay, so it should be optimum. Scanning strategy is very important. We have adopted 67 degree angle rotating stripe method. What it means, let's say I build a first layer at 0 degree. The next layer we will start from 67 degree. The third layer will start from 67 into 2, that is about 134, right? 134 degree. Like that, it will be each layer will be 67 degree away from the previous layer. With respect to the previous layer, it will be 67 degree away we will start. That's called the 67 degree rotating stripe method. The reason is it will helps you to minimize the anisotropy. The reason is you are not making the heat flow in the same direction in each layer. Thereby, you are disturbing the grain orientation in each layer, so that you will get a more randomized grains or very less texture in the component. Okay, and what are the tests we have conducted? There are 2 phases of testing. One is before printing the samples, that is on the powder, to ensure that powder has a certain good quality in terms of size, shape, particle size distribution, apparent density, tap density, flow rate, and chemistry. Size is very important. As I said, you cannot have a macro size. Okay, so the problem will be there. You should not have below submicron size also. Okay, so it should be an optimum size in the range of 10 to 60 micron meter range, which will give you a better packing density. At the same time, it will give you a good flow rate. And shape should be spherical, so that the interparticle friction between the particle is less, so you will have a smooth flow. And particle size distribution, it should not be unimodal, like it should not have a constant size. It should be varying from some range to some range, that is 10 to 60, so that your packing density is improved. Like if you just you assume there are 4 spheres, you just keep stacking each other, you will have an interstices. Suppose if I have a particle which has a size of interstices, I can able to fill that and I can increase the packing density of the powder. Okay, And apparent density is the measure of understanding the powder packing and the flow rate. Similarly, tap density. If you have a higher apparent density, your packing will be better and flow rate will be better. And flow rate, yeah, it is a Hall flow meter we use to measure the flow rate. 50 gram powders to how long it will take for the 50 gram powder to flow
sorry,
through.
excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. Sir, are you changing your slides, sir?
No, I'm not changing my slide.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. That's why I want to confirm. Okay.
Yeah, I am in the first slide and third line.
Okay.
Actually, my slide will not have information. Only the title will be there. I'll be explaining.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. And flow rate, that is on testing. Third point, if you see the flow rate, we use the Hall flow meter to measure the flow rate, like 50 gram of powders to flow through a orifice of 25 mm in Hall flow meter. How long it will take? That is nothing but the flow rate, second for 50 grams. How many seconds it take for the 50 grams to flow through it. And chemistry is very important. We ensure the input raw material chemical composition is similar to aluminium 10 Si Mg. Plus, is there any oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, gaseous element amount, we'll fix it there. Then we do the coupon level test like tensile and hardness test for all the 3 directionally built samples, and microstructure also, residual stress also. And to understand the defects inside the component, we did fluorescent penetrant to inspect the surface, and we did X-ray microcomputer tomography to understand the internal defects. We don't use radiography, we use a computer tomography. Advantage is you will get a 3-dimensional image, which will also tell you defect dimension, okay, defect geometry, and you have a provision to understand the cross section of the defects through slice views. Okay, in addition to the understanding the defects, you can also measure you can get the rough density, because you are able to get all the porosities here. So theoretical density minus porosity will give you the density, and you can also understand the surface roughness from the X-ray computer tomography. Now, before getting into what we did research, I want you to understand in aluminium what are the challenges. Hope you are able to see the slides. I moved on to the second slide.
Yes, sir.
Right, thanks. Yeah, challenges, if you see, unlike titanium or steel or superalloys, aluminium, though it has a low melting point, it is highly challenging to melt it. The reason is it has a high reflectivity to laser, about 91%. Only 9% of the energy can be used for the absorption and melting the powders. So high laser reflectivity dictates high laser power requirements. Again, in the laser also, type of laser, whether gas laser or the fiber laser, if you see, fiber lasers of neodymium, yttrium, aluminum, garnet or ytterbium fibers are preferred, because these fibers wavelength absorbability for the laser and aluminium is higher. Second is aluminium, like copper, it has a good conductivity. So the problem with the good conductivity is the heat in the melt to pole, it will get quickly vanish. So heat accumulation in the melt to pole is very less, and cooling rate is very high, resulting high tendency for cracking, especially the hot cracking. Then, as you know very well, welding aluminium is very difficult because of the oxidation and the stable tenacious oxide layer. So it easily oxides, and the powders also easily catch the moisture in between powder particles. So there is a strict control is needed on gaseous elements, okay, like oxygen and hydrogen in the powder or in the build chamber, so that there will not be any problem of oxidation or hydrogen induced crackings in the chamber. Okay, that's why we use the argon shielding. And aluminium, again, another issue is a high CTE, that is coefficient of thermal expansion. This will be the problem when you rapidly heat and cool. It will induce the thermal stresses due to non-uniform thermal expansion and contractions. Okay. And second is aluminium alloys mostly have a wide solidification range. Okay, like you have a liquid, then you have a range of temperature where both solid and liquid will be there, then you will have a solid. So in the solid and liquid region, because of the wide solidification range, what happens, and the high cooling rate is there, you will form generally dendrites of complex dendrites, and interdendritic regions okay, and the one which is solidified last will be devoid of metal to be filled there, causing the solidification cracking at the end during the solidification. We call it solidification cracking or solidification shrinkage porosities. Okay, and lastly, when you have, like for example, in this alloy you have a magnesium which has a lower melting point. There is a tendency for these low melting alloying elements to evaporate in the melt pole by laser, so which creates the chemical fluctuation in the final part. And okay, so these are the challenges in the aluminium alloy. Why we had chosen aluminium 10Si AMG, because it is the workhorse in aluminium alloy, easily printable, process parameters were stabilized for that, and good success were achieved. Okay, and looking at technically, it is a near eutectic alloy, so the solidification range is very narrow. So the problem of solid shrinkage porosity or cracking resistance is low. Second is the presence of silicon improves the fluidity of the molten pole, so you will not have a problem related to the fluidity reasons. Okay. Now let's understand globally in metal additive manufacturing. Like you evolve the components. What are the parameters which dictate the properties like static or dynamic properties? When I mean static, it is tensile, bending, torsion. These are static. When I mean dynamic, it is fatigue, thermal fatigue, high temperature fatigue. Kind of loadings are called dynamic properties. Even your vibration also. Okay. What are the property determiner? If you see, one is the defect in the component, second is microstructure, what you get in the component, third is residual stresses. Okay, these three dictates static property. In dynamic case, in addition to these three, surface roughness also plays a vital role, because fatigue crack initiates on the surface. Okay, then coming to the typical defects what you encounter in the additive manufactured aluminium alloy, one is rough surface. Okay, that is due to the balling effect. Balling effect is nothing but poor wettability of the molten pole on the previously solidified layer. Okay, so when you have poor wettability, there will not be good bonding, resulting interlayer pores scattered on the interlayer. At the same time, that surface also will be very rough. Okay, this may also this kind of rough surface also come due to droplets splashing. When the laser is impinged on the molten pole, there is a chance for the molten pole liquid gets splashed, causing the rough surface. Okay, and another is a very important parameter in the printing is laser power density. There is laser power by scanning speed into layer thickness into hatch distance. That is called laser energy density. When it should be very optimum, it should not be too low or it should not be too high. If it is too low, you have a problem called lack of fusion porosity, okay, which are usually found at layer interfaces, and shape is irregular. So if you find irregular shape porosities, then it is a lack of fusions. Second is if you use excessive laser energy density. So as I said earlier, there are some elements in the molten pole will get vaporized. This vaporized metal causes a recoil back pressure on the molten pole, okay, surface, causing keyhole porosities. Okay, this looks like a rounded shape. Third is due to the gaseous elements like oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen causing the gas porosities. It is mainly due to gas entrapment in the molten pole. This gas can come from gas get trapped in between powder particles or gas inside the powder itself. You take a single particle inside also there is a possibility that powder can be there. Gases can be there, and you also use inert gas in the build chamber that also may get entrapped, causing the gas porosity. How to identify? Its shape should be spherical and it is fine and scattered. Then comes shrinkage porosity. Okay, that is due to the solidification. If you have a long wide solidification range due to insufficient supply of metal to the interdendritic region during solidification cause the shrinkage porosities. So we did a vast literature review and we understood that if you have a porosity amount less than 1% and those porosities are less than 0.5 mm, then these porosities doesn't affect the mechanical property. That is the understanding we got. So this point is very important for the industry people. Now let's get into our research. This is the chemical composition of the powders and printed samples. We have measured the chemical composition through atomic absorption spectroscopy, and X-ray fluorescence also can be used. And inductively coupled plasma optical emission spectroscopy can be also used to measure the chemistry. Okay, and for gaseous elements like hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, there is a technique called inert gas fusion, which can be used to measure the oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen. Then before printing the samples powder, we have taken its measured size, shape, apparent density, tab density, and flow rate. So particle size and particle size distribution we have measured through laser particle analyzer. Sieve analysis could not be used for the particles which have less than 40 micron meter in general. Okay, that's why we have gone for laser particle analyzer. So the idea here is we should have a bi and dry model particle size distribution for the better packing, and particle size in the range, more amount of particles should be there in the core size so that you have better flow rate. And apparent density and flow rate we have measured through Hall flow meter, and tab density we have tab density instrument, which will help you measure the particle density after 1000 tapping. And these particles were produced through gas atomization, because this is the one technique which will give you the spherical shaped particles, which will ensure high flow rate and packing density. Now let's see results one by one. First thing what we measured in the as-built condition and heat-treated conditions. Okay, we have considered two cases: just to print it and test it. Another one is subject them to T6 heat treatment. That is, heating to 540 degrees Celsius solution treatment, and followed by quenching and aging at 160 degrees Celsius. Okay, so that is called heat treatment. We measured the residual stresses. Two important points you can see. One is the residual stresses is reduced after heat treatment. Second point is the variation in the residual stresses also is reduced after heat treatment. And compared to comparing different directions, horizontal direction shows low residual stresses in as-built and the heat-treated condition. Okay, so how we measure the residual stresses? If we see, we have used X-ray diffraction method. There is a in the X-ray diffraction there is a method called d-spacing versus sine square psi graph. Like that, X is called a tilt angle. Okay, we keep the sample in the XRD machine, and first what we do, we'll try to use the powder and get the d-spacing in the stress-free state. Okay, and we put the samples and we'll tilt the samples to several angles and capture the d-spacing value and plot the d-spacing value with respect to the tilt angle square of sine of tilt angle square. Okay, then if you take the slope of the curve, will give you the residual stresses. So if you want further information on how this measurement is done, we can separately discuss, because it itself will be a half an hour discussion how the experiment is conducted. But simply what I can say, the slope of the curve will give you the biaxial residual stresses. So you can see at the bottom the equation, that is Young's modulus by 1 plus Poisson ratio, and the diffraction peak what you have used, that is HKL, and 1 by D naught. D naught is nothing but your interplanar spacing at in stress-free state, and dou d by dou sine square psi is nothing but the slope of the curve. So if you plug all the parameters, you will get the residual stresses. Now tensile properties, that is UTM you have used and measured the tensile properties. As you can see clearly, there is no change in the yield strength. Okay, whether you do heat treatment or you don't do heat treatment, both as-built and heat treatment condition, you didn't find any kind of change in the yield strength. Thus, there is a good change in the tensile properties. After the heat treatment, tensile property has reduced, and the variation in the tensile property also reduced. But ductility has phenomenally increased. You can see the values from 6 to 14. That is about 200% improvement, and 4 to 12 it is about 300% improvement. Again, the 3.5 to 11 about 300% improvement. Ductility has improved significantly, And other structure insensitivity property like density and Young's modulus, there were no changes between as-built condition and heat-treated conditions. So the takeaway is density is improved at the expense of or at the compromise of tensile strength, but there are no significant change in the yield strength. These are the optical microscope picture. Left side is as-built, right side is after T6 heat treatment. Observation is in the as-built condition, you can see clearly the tracks, laser tracks, which has a very fine fibrous or acicular silicon particles embedded in the supersaturated aluminum matrix. And right side you have a globular silicon particles of fine size. Okay, so how this transformation happened in the heat treatment is very simple. Like when you heat it, the silicon which is segregated and the melt pole boundary will come out, and from the matrix also both join together and form a silicon particles of globular shape. So the advantage of the globular shape is it reduces the local shear at the matrix and silicon particle interfaces. Okay. Second is when you have a less number of interfaces due to the particle coarsening compared to the as-built condition. Third is segregation is significantly removed. Because of these three effects, okay, your ductility has improved. Because silicon size has coarsened, strength has reduced. So that has happened due to the heat treatment. Now it comes a very important thing. Whatever you have done till now is a very simple experiments. Now let's go a little deeper. So the so-called very quality research what we have done it. So we did EBSD, electron backscatter diffractions. These are the images of that. You can see that the grain size. The mean grain size for all the cases it's up 8 to 10 micron meter. And compared to vertical and inclined direction, horizontal direction has both coarser grain and fine grains. Coarser grains are columnar in nature, which are found inside the melt pole, and at the periphery we find very fine grain sizes, equiaxed sizes were there. So it is called the bimodal grain distribution. Whereas vertical and inclined directions, you have log normal distribution of the grains, mostly of equiaxed grains. And compared to the grain size, horizontal direction has a much finer grain sizes. And we didn't leave there, and we have plotted the grain size versus area fraction and grain aspect ratio, like length versus height. That is the grain aspect ratio with the number fraction. If we see in both the cases, we see bimodal distribution and more amount of very fine grain sizes in the horizontal direction compared to the vertical and inclined direction. So you can see the curve here. Okay. Further, we didn't leave there. We tried to understand from the EBSD result of how about the grain misorientation angle, okay, and grain reference orientation deviation. How is it? Okay, and kernel average misorientation. These are the information you have pulled out from EBSD results. The one what you find is grain orientation, grain orientation, misorientation angle study. Here the misorientation angle of each grain with respect to the number fractions were plotted for all three directions, like horizontal, inclined and vertical. Correlated in uncorrelated conditions. Correlated means in a full grain structures, take a particular grain and compare with its neighbor, and when you go to the next grain, it will be compared with its next neighbor, like that. Whereas in uncorrelated, we fix the grain, a particular grain we will fix it with respect to that all other grains in the micrograph. What is the misorientation angle, we will calculate it. Okay, so what we understood is interestingly, horizontal direction has high fraction of low angle grain boundary, about 50% were there, 50-50 was there, whereas in inclined vertical we have about 30% low angle grain boundary. Low angle grain boundaries are very beneficial because it ensures more dislocation density, and it also ensures more subgrains inside the grain structure. Inside a single grain, more subgrain will be there. These are the one which is going to help you to improve the ductility of the material. Then we also try to understand the grain boundary character distribution, and as I said, kernel average misorientation. So you can see that low angle grain boundary, high angle grain boundary, and coordinated site lattice. Though coordinated site lattice is very low, and it is its importance is not felt here, but it is surprising to see CSL character grains in the aluminum kind of alloy which has a high stacking fault. Okay, so if you look at the misorientation angle chem value, you can see that the chem value will dictate give you the idea about how the intra-grain orientation. I mean, you take a single grain, inside subgrains are there. How it is misorientation is easily understood through kernel average misorientation. Okay, so kernel average misorientation caused by growth faults during solidifications and statistically stored dislocation coming from the powders and geometrically necessary dislocation coming due to thermal stresses arising in the mill to pole. If you have a high chem value, okay, it indicates that you have a large fraction of low angle grain boundary. Okay, so this large fraction tells that you have a high dislocation density inside the grain and more number of subgrains or subgrain boundaries in the inside the horizontal samples. And we didn't leave there. In order to validate the result of chem value, we did grain reference orientation deviations. So you can see the the grains with a different color inside. You have to look at inside the grain. So if the color changes from blue or green, blue, green, gray, and white. So if it moves from this direction to this direction, like if you have more and more amount of gray and green, it means that you have more intra-grain misorientations. So as you can see very well, in the figure A, you can see more amount of gray and white regions, which indicates a large intra-grain misorientation. In other words, you have more amount of subgrains and higher dislocation density inside the grains. And we also try to understand the bulk texture through XRD experiments. So we have plotted the inverse pole figure here. So one understanding from this inverse pole figure is texture is very weak in all the direction in samples like horizontal, vertical, and incline. Okay, despite of large fraction of low angle grain boundary which will cause the texture, we didn't find strong texture in the horizontal direction. It is because these low angle grain boundaries are not these are inside the grain in a clustered manner rather than formed throughout in the grain microstructure. So that made texture weak inside the texture weak in the horizontal samples. So this weak texture, what is trying to tell us is mechanical property is not depending on texture. It depends on the grain size and morphology and grain boundary character, not the texture. And we have also gathered the data from the XRD and made the misorientation distribution function. We call it MDF function for different deposition conditions. So from this figure, what you can understand in the vertical horizontal directions, there is a preferred orientation, slight texture in the 60-degree angle. So this is useful because this direction or this orientation has low energy. Okay, that helps to provide you high crack propagation resistance. So in other words, because you have a high crack propagation resistance, you have improved ductility. And we didn't also find no preferred grain boundary texture or the orientation through from MDF. And we did the fractography studies to understand how the fracture surface after the tensile testing. So we mostly find the dimples and silicon particle fractured regions, and we can see very clearly the mill to pole shapes very clearly. Okay, compared to horizontal and inclined vertical direction, we can see the bead size, the laser bead size very clearly. So and it is because you have high residual stress along the mill pole boundary, which result in lower ductility in the vertical directions, although you have a fine grain size. Okay, because it has a high residual stresses, the crack propagation along the mill pole boundary is very easy. And as I said, like the fracture of silicon particles were visible in all the cases. So the conclusion is very simple. That is, in as-built state, variation of the tensile property is significant compared in the as-built or as-printed conditions. compared to vertical and inclined directions, and horizontal directions provides the good combination of strength and ductility, and residual stresses in all the directions were significant. Heat treatment helped to minimize the residual stresses, okay, helped to minimize the built direction effects, like in the property variation with respect to direction, that is called anisotropy, which it minimized significantly, and it has improved the ductility at the expense of tensile strength, ultimate tensile strength after the heat treatment. The reason of improvement in the ductility is due to the globular and fine silicon particles, and you have reduced the residual stresses in that, and the minimization of silicon segregation at the melt pole boundary by combining them and making a silicon particles a globular shape, and observation of more dimples and absence of fracture along the melt pole boundary. These are the reason for improvement in the ductility. And what we understood from this research, surface roughness and defects have not played a key role in deciding the tensile property, whereas the microstructure and residual stresses are very important in deciding the tensile property. And good combination of strength and ductility in the horizontal direction. If you see Y, here you have a bimodal grain distribution with very fine grain sizes, and more amount of subgrain formed inside the grain, which were validated through kernel average misorientation map and GROD, that is grain reference orientation maps. Okay, and more dislocation density also we have confirmed through high CAM value and high fraction, about 50% of the low angle grain boundary are confirmed by EBST, grain boundary characterization, character distribution results, and of course low residual stresses also help you to improve the strength and ductility. And we found that there are no texture or very weak textures were absorbed in all the directions. Hence, mechanical property of the aluminum 10 SMG is not affected by the texture. So these are the significant conclusion we drew from our results. With this, I'll conclude. We have another 10 minutes for the question and answer on my research. And in 11 to 12, we can have the PhD scope and funding proposal slides. Thank you so much. Now the forum is open for the discussion, please. I'm done with the presentation, so people can ask me the question. You are able to hear me? You are able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Audible, no? Audible, no? Okay, please. You can enable the chat box also, so people can type in questions if they are not keen on asking over the online call. I'm not able to open my chat box. I don't know whether you have to give access or not. I don't know. Can you just give me the access? Sir, I'm not able to see the chat box, so It's saying that channel chat is available only for team members, not for you like that. So if you could enable, then it will be really good. Any questions? Hello? பிருத்திவி, எனக்கு யாரும் கொஸ்டின் கேக்குறாங்களா இல்லையான்னு எனக்கு தெரியல. என் சாட்டும் ஓப்பனா இல்ல. என்னோடது வர மாட்டேது, ஏன்னு தெரியல. அல்லது நீங்க எனக்கு அல்லது சொல்லுங்க. ஓகே, நான் அப்படின்னா இப்ப க்ளோஸ் பண்ணிடவா? ஓகே 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 ஃபைன். யா யா